Greetings. Let's go over chapter 2, Loma Prieta earthquake. The following month, their lives changed forever. The night before, Akemi took out her prayer beads and prayed that she would become a citizen of this country the next day. On Tuesday, October 17th, Akemi woke up, gave her roommate her birthday present, a pair of headphones from the campus bookstore. That way, Akemi doesn't have to listen to her roommate's music. Not surprisingly, her roommate did not get the message. She was confused. So rather than argue with her roommate, Akemi just let the matter go. Whatever. After classes in the morning, the immigration attorney hailed the Murphy Hotel shuttle bus to pick her up from the university to take them to the swearing-in ceremony. After the ceremony, Akemi and the attorney went back to the front desk. The attorney asked whether or not Akemi needed to do anything else. The clerk gave Akemi a name change form, advised her to notify Social Security Administration of her new citizenship status, and her new name as soon as she gets the naturalization certificate in the mail. At this time, Akemi had the option to change her name. Unlike other Asian immigrants, she hated her name. The teacher either mispronounced her name, calling her Cami with a C-I-E, Cami with a C-Y, Cami with a K-Y, Camila or Cameron. Or her classmates were persistent in making certain Akemi knows that she is an immigrant. She's not American. She always wanted an American name, so she changed her name to, instead of Akemi, it's now Kim O'Hara. Once she gets married, she'll drop her maiden name because that's what her mother did in Japan. She also made a mental note to notify the university's registrar's office of her new name once she gets her certificate in the mail. At 5:04 p.m., Kim and the immigration attorney finally left the building. They were about to re-enter the hotel shuttle bus. That's the moment when the earthquake hit. The attorney quickly but carefully protected Kim from the initial shaking, and just in case there might be any debris, falling from the buildings. This one also had the vertical motion similar to a roller coaster ride, as well as side to side. Although she was scared, when the attorney asked her if she's okay, she told him she's okay. So they carefully drove back to university. The drive back was surreal. Parts of the city were on fire, including the Marina District to their right. There was debris on the mini streets. They had to take side streets to get back to the university on the other side of the city. As they passed several gasoline stations, all of them were out of business, not out of business, but they were closed. Without electricity, they could not pump gasoline into their cars. The same applied to all the apartment grocery stores that they passed by, as well as other businesses. So at this time, Kim wondered, why don't they make a standard to install solar panels on the roof of all buildings, or at least install backup generators? Then in case of a blackout, they could have remained in business. So hashtag missed opportunity. Granted, if you look at the images of the Loma Prieta earthquake, a lot of merchandise went from the shelf to the floor, and back then, there wasn't as much plastic. A lot of the containers were in glass jars, so they broke. So yeah, it's one of those. Should they have had solar panels on the roof? Well, with earthquakes, you're gonna have a lot of debris on the floor. All the merchandise is gonna be broken. Contents spilled out all over. But anyway, at least they could have done something. Tried to sell merchandise that is not broken, kind of something like that. So you could tell there's a lot of chaos. When they got to her residence hall, it was still standing. So the building is still there. However, it was badly damaged, and the university officials needed time to assess the damage. How bad is it? Can people go back into the building? If not, how are people going to get their stuff out? So, and then the people who are displaced, where are they gonna go? So there's a lot of what I call controlled chaos going on. So author's note about a decade later, and I will revisit this during the last chapter, 1999. About a decade later, they did invite the public to witness the demolition of this residence hall. 17 stories of this building, so it's not, like a little apartment. It's huge. Not surprisingly, there wasn't a dry eye at the event. So, going back to 1989, all of a sudden, Kim was technically homeless. She could not go back into the residence hall to get her stuff. She also did not have a place to sleep because she can't go. Nobody's allowed back into the building at this point. So she doesn't have a place to sleep for the remainder of the academic year. So at this time, she hated the politically correct way to talk about people who are homeless. It's obvious they chose elitist terms to describe something they know absolutely nothing about. So this reminded her of a recurring dream that Kim had whenever she was at a crossroads in her life. Around the time her mother was in the hospital to birth her younger sister, Kim dreamt being outside on her own, on top of a dirt ground. There was a maze composed of waist-high green bushes. All of a sudden, she was being chased by something or someone she didn't know. Eventually, she was able to run to the center of the hedge maze. There was a couch with two dolls that represented her parents. She was alone. Each time she had this nightmare, she woke up in a sweat. While Kim was on the verge of a full-blown panic attack, Trey hailed Kim, "Hey, remember me?" He too was temporarily homeless because his stuff was also in the same residence hall and he can't get to it. So the hotel shuttle bus driver, quick thinking, because this is San Francisco, you have to move quickly. You can't just stand there, wondering what you're supposed to do next. So the hotel shuttle bus driver immediately went into first responder mode, used their CB radio to contact the CB radio at the hotel. Keep in mind, this is before cell phones. So, and obviously, all the utilities, including the landline telephone services, they're all down. So he's got the CB radio, contact the CB radio at the hotel. After a quick exchange of the situation, the driver drove the immigration attorney, Kim, and Trey back to the Murphy Hotel. Now, this was a multi-story Victorian mansion located near Japantown. It was something Kim only saw in Hollywood movies and glamour magazines. The dining hall is formal with tablecloths made from fabric. The floors are carpeted. Each hotel room, let me specify that. Each hotel room has its own bed, bathroom with more carpeting, oversized windows with curtains. The windows are double pane to keep out the noise and outside temperature. The bathrooms were tiled with linoleum flooring, sink, and toilet. The walls were composed of stucco. The ceiling had fluorescent light bulbs and a plastic casing. Same as the rest of the city, there wasn't any utility service: electricity, landline, telephone, sewage, water, etc. So again, this time they did not have cellular phones. I mean, they kind of sort of had cellular phone service, but it was like the size of or bigger than the size of your hand back then. And only a handful of wealthy people had those. So at the front desk, the staff gave Kim a key card to the White University on-campus residence hall. She was escorted to her room. At the hotel room, she was shown how to use a key card. In her private bathroom, there were several gallon jugs of bottled water to manually flush the toilet. Because when the water service is down, you can't just press down the lever. There's no water. So they had to use the water from the plastic jugs to manually flush the toilet. So next to the bathroom sink, there was a welcome kit full of toiletries and coupons good for the next purchase at the Murphy department store and Murphy grocery store. The hotel owner personally met each displaced university student, to let them know exactly what they need to get through the next several months. One of the things that helped Kim get through the next several weeks was the fact that Trey was her next door neighbor. They made certain to say goodnight to each other before they retired, and they took the same hotel shuttle bus to and from the university as well. They staffed did more than their best to stay calm. They had backup generators. However, they carefully asked the guests, please only use the electricity when they absolutely have to. So the staff gave each guest a flashlight with backup batteries to help them navigate the hotel for the time being. So granted, daytime, you got the sun. You don't need a flashlight, but at night when the sun goes down, it's going to be dark. If you can imagine, no street lights, no electricity inside the buildings, no traffic lights, just everything is just quiet and dark. So now they also kept their banquet room and kitchen room open 24 hours a day for the short term until things got back to a new normal. At this time, the staff were busy finding businesses that would donate bags of ice to keep their refrigerators and freezers cold, because no electricity, and food is quickly spoiling. In addition, they told the students to prepare whatever food they need in the kitchen. If they have any restrictions or need assistance preparing the meal, all they need to do is use the call button in their room or kitchen, for assistance. And somebody is on site, 24 hours a day. 7 days a week, 52 weeks out of the year. So, at this time, the matriarch of the Murphy family also stayed at the front desk. Since she went through the 1906 earthquake, she already knows what to do in case of an earthquake. She gave each of her adult children instructions ahead of time. Stay safe. Come to the hotel to let her know that you're okay. One of the last people to go to the hotel was one of her granddaughters, Shannon Murphy. She was in her 30s. Her right arm was in a sling. She had a band-aid under her left eye. Her husband passed away several years ago, her first husband, from terminal stage stomach cancer. She was still wearing her wedding ring. Their mutual friend, Dr. Anselmo Elmo Cruz, helped her get to the hotel to let her grandmother know she's okay. Shannon, at that time, was working at a local acupuncture clinic when the earthquake struck. So she was on the floor that was littered with broken pieces of glass. After it was safe to walk, Dr. Cruz immediately went to the clinic looking for her, going through each patient room, calling her name. He was the one who took her to the hospital. The worst of her injuries was a concussion. That was the reason why she was unconscious. However, he kept quiet about the severity of her condition since he knew that it would only upset her grandmother. There was also the unresolved issue of the fact that there's a lot of microscopic pieces of glass deeply embedded in her skin that the emergency room staff could not find. Understandably, they did some x-rays to check for broken bones. However, x-rays don't help locate any glass fragments that were left in her. Side note, I know this is nothing to do with this, but side note, in the aftermath of the 9/11 terrorist attacks, many survivors also had microscopic pieces of glass embedded in their skin as well. So, kind of give you a little context of how serious both situations were. At the front desk of the hotel, Kim took the self-addressed stamped envelope that she bought from the university bookstore out of her backpack that she took with her to the swearing-in ceremony. She also took out one of her Hello Kitty stationery. She did more than her best to write as neatly as possible, even though she was still shaky from the initial earthquake. The landline telephone service was down, so she wrote her parents exactly what happened to her residence hall, where exactly she's currently staying, and drew a rudimentary street map of exactly where the hotel is located compared to the university, and included the hotel's landline telephone number. At this time, she asked the front desk clerk where her parents could park their car when they stopped by to visit. After she gathered all the information, she added it to the letter. At this time, she put the letter to the envelope, sealed it with one of the stickers she got from the university's bookstore that has a university logo. Then she tossed it in the vintage metal mailbox tray that was on the front desk. Next, she asked about the rules of the hotel. There was one rule that was interesting. Although it's not hard set, since some people do need to bathe first thing in the morning or during the day, they ask all guests to consider waiting until after 9 p.m. to bathe. The reason is the electricity rates drop after 9 p.m. Now, granted, right now, there isn't any electricity or water service. However, it was good to know that what the rules are once utility services are restored. Kim wishes she could impose this rule on her family. Growing up, she hated taking baths in the middle of the day on weekends. To add insult to injury, on weekdays, her parents insisted on bathing right after work, and that was a scheduling conflict with making dinner. At this time, she made a mental note to wait until after 9 p.m. to bathe at this particular hotel. This hotel gets a discount on electricity bill for each guest who waits until after peak hours to bathe. The staff also waits toward the end of that day to launder linen as well. Also, she did realize this means she can't live with her family's home any longer, even if they need her to become their full-time caregiver. Since she can't figure out a solution at this time, she just put it on the back burner. Granted, water service and electricity were both out. So Kim used jugs of bottled water and did her best to try to bathe with room temperature water in the bathroom sink for now. This week was hotter than usual throughout the Bay Area, so even room temperature water helped her beat the heat. In the dining hall, the staff did more than their best to prepare meals with backup generators, or in the kitchen actually. They also carefully asked guests to help them eat perishable food that evening, milk, cheese, ice cream, etc. that was in the freezers and refrigerators. This Kim did not want to impose on the kitchen staff. She got her own workstation, prepared her own meals. At this time, she realized that there weren't any paper towels. It made sense. They launder everything, rather than waste money on paper towels. So at that time, Kim wondered how she can get her parents to stop wasting money on the paper towels. And then she put this one also on the back burner. The next day, the university's on-campus housing staff let a few students enter the residence hall at a time just to get their personal belongings out. So, after Kim got her belongings into several boxes, she loaded them onto the hotel shuttle bus to get her stuff back to her hotel room. Trey stayed at the same hotel, so Kim had the driver stay until Trey got all of his stuff out. That way, the driver only needs to make one trip. All the classes were canceled, obviously, because without electricity, you can't do anything. The classrooms are all dark, because it's got 4 walls, ceiling, floor, no windows. So classes are canceled for now as well. Kim did her best to try to study outside the hotel during the day when the sun's out. They had the perfect setup with beach chairs and sun umbrellas surrounding the hotel's outdoor pool. Around Thursday evening, the power finally came back on. Everyone at the hotel hooped and hollered. That was like the one time finally, there's sound, there's people, Kim immediately used the hotel's landline telephone service to call her parents. She used her prepaid landline telephone card to make the call, so the hotel won't have to pay for the call. Not surprisingly, her parents also, they lived nearby. They also didn't have utility service until that evening. They also told her they finally got her letter. They agreed to meet at the hotel rather than the university that weekend. So it was evening in her hotel room. She turned on the television set, so this is after dinner. She saw what the rest of the world has been seeing for the past 3 days and 2 nights. The images of various multiple-story homes crushed, collapsed highways, random buildings on fire, gruesome graphic details of how the dead people were found, trapped in their cars, their homes. It was all surreal. And at this time, she wondered how this earthquake compared to the one back in 1906. And she couldn't help but to cry. Hope sickness finally hit her, and it hit her really hard. At this time, she made the promise to herself from this day forward, she would do whatever it takes to make sure she's never homeless again for the rest of her life. At this time, the hotel staff made their rounds, asked guests to not drink the tap water. They advised all guests just let the water run out into the sink and bathtubs for several minutes until the dark water runs clear. Because these past 3 days and 2 nights, the water has not been running, so there's a lot of sediment and debris in the pipes. So you have to let the water keep running until the dark water runs clear. They also advise all guests to flush the toilet once before they use it the first time. And they advise all guests to address any and all questions to the staff before they do anything. Because this whole San Francisco Bay Area was declared national disaster. So before a guest does something, they need to ask the staff, because the staff already know. They already gone through the earthquake drills. This is what you need to do. This is what you need to do to make sure that the guests are also on the same page regarding what they can and cannot do during this time. So for the next several weeks, Kim chose to not watch the local news because it was only about the earthquake, and it was all too surreal for her. She avoided the newspaper, even though the hotel's front lobby had a coin-operated newspaper stand with the front page in full view. The front page is behind glass, clear glass, so you can see the front page. On Friday morning, the university finally resumed classes. Even though they were supposed to have lessons, the only thing students, faculty, and staff were talking about that day was the earthquake. And the fact that there were hundreds of aftershocks did not help the situation. Friday evening, Kim went back to her hotel room. There, she met a 22-year-old man who had hazel eyes and auburn hair. He could not have been a few more inches taller than her. Kim's barely 5 feet tall. Plus, like Kim, he was thin. He was going door to door, asking guests what they needed. When he saw her, he had an epiphany. She was the person he was looking for his entire life. Dun dun dun. Although he was painfully shy, he stammered that his name is Peter Alloway. Kim told him she's heard about him. He was the one who reunited the Murphy families, East Coast, West Coast, back together. He blushed, but managed to nod. He got to the point. He told her that when his mother was in the family way with him, she suffered a miscarriage, and he feels that she carries the spirit of his long-lost twin. Kim was in awe. When Kim felt his energy, she felt there was something authentic about him, and believed him to be telling the truth. Because why would you lie about something that serious? There was also something about him that told her that she needs him as much as he needs her. As a result, she carefully told him that her parents are Japanese immigrants who are xenophobic and racist. He tried to reason with her by telling her he has cystic fibrosis. He has only one chance at marriage. By marrying him, she won't have to worry about money for the rest of her life. Plus, his parents and his elder sister will have her back for the rest of her life as well. She can always marry her own kind after he passes. But when he realized that she wouldn't budge, he let the matter go. His paternal grandfather, Alistair Rory Alloway, immigrated from Scotland in 1929. I know, somebody's like, I know what happened in 1929. Hold on. In New York City, He started an international corporation that connects small businesses from around the world with his childhood friend Duncan Hamish Shaw. In 1964, the same year Tokyo hosted the Summer Olympic Games, Peter's father started the satellite office of his father's corporation in Tokyo. So, through his father, Peter learned Japan is xenophobic and homophobic. As a result, Peter was not surprised that Kim is expected to be straight and marry her own kind. So for now, Peter put their future on the back burner and made a mental note to talk with his father the next time he's in the area. Until Peter returned to the private university in Southern California on Sunday afternoon, they had dinner together at the hotel's dining room. That evening after dinner, Kim used the hotel's commercial online service to learn as much as she can about cystic fibrosis. Granted, it would be much better if she just goes to the university library to get that information from a reputable source. However, the information that she did gain from this online service gave her pause. Not only does this condition not have a cure, it also significantly reduces a person's quality of life and will cut the person's life short. So in the past, newborns passed away. Later on, with better medical care, children passed away. Currently, based on their living conditions and lifestyle, they may live into their 40s, but they're not going to make it to their 50th birthday. So Kim can tell Peter is a warm-hearted and kind person. Moreover, he's honest and humble, which makes him an easy person to live with. As a result, she could see that he's making each day count. Since he's in his early to mid-20s, physically he's already middle-aged. It was so unfair. At this time, Kim made a mental note to help him as much as she can from the sidelines. Also, it made her realize how fragile and precious life is. Also, although this condition is rare, only 1 in every 3,000 Northern European births, she felt that a marriage potential could be someone who either... So her marriage potential could be someone who either has this condition, so maybe she might marry another Peter, or has an immediate family member who has this condition. So that way, she could further help Peter and his family. So for now, she puts this on the back burner because everything is still up in the air. I'm not really sure what's going to happen next. So for now, she put it on the back burner. Now, little did Kim realize that this chance meeting started her journey to soften down. Because you can see, first chapter, if Kim was a real person and you met her, you would have stayed away from her because you're like, ugh, this person thinks she knows everything. She thinks she's better than everyone else. That's the kind of person you would avoid. But now you can see with this chance meeting, she's starting to soften down. So she decided from then on to not put any more people in the friend zone. No more, because anything can change. Something might happen in the future. Maybe she might be able to marry somebody who's not Japanese, and their parents and their younger sister will accept them. Because so for now, she put it on the back burner. She decided from then on. So things change constantly. She must be flexible and open-minded. On Saturday morning, Kim woke up feeling miserable. When she went to the private bathroom of her hotel room, she realized why. In addition to the stress of moving to university, losing her place to live due to the earthquake, it was that time of the month. It's like, bam, bam, that's literally like the straw that broke the camel's back. She knew the first few days are especially the worst. However, she hoped it would be less uncomfortable by Monday when she resumes classes. So after she hand-washed the stains out of her underwear, she put it into her laundry basket. She took the waterproof mattress pad her mother gave her, put it into her bed. Then she took the laundry basket to the hotel's laundry room. When she saw Peter in the hallway, she almost fainted. He called her in the basket. She apologized. He waited away. He helped get her and the laundry back to the laundry room. There they did laundry together. He carefully told her he feels she might have endometriosis. When she asked him what that was, he carefully explained that two of his friends were surgically diagnosed. When she heard surgery, she cringed. She couldn't imagine surgery. They figure out how she's gonna get through the next few days. He apologized. Oops, sorry. The hotel's laundry room. They saw one of the staff. Almost immediately, Kim remembered the hotel's room. Wait until after 9 p.m. when the utility bills are lower. However, the staff person saw that Kim was doing poorly and just don't worry about it. Just use the laundry room. So the staff person nodded, excused herself, because Kim apologized and thanked her for accommodating. So at this time, Kim made the mental note, okay, don't forget, after 9 p.m., do the laundry. So from then on, she got a plastic bucket, covered it with a bathtub with a paper note, asking hotel staff, leave it, she'll use the laundry after hours. Because you would not want to be hotel staff. You go into a hotel room, you go to the bathroom, you see this bucket full of dirty underwear in there. So so she covers it in the bath towel and puts it with a paper note. Leave it. I'll take care of it when I get back. So after both of them put together a pair of cleaning gloves to keep Peter safe from her germs, they did the laundry together. At this time, she has a lot of questions. Because this whole week it was hot, so her clothes are all sweaty and stinky. So they put on a pair of cleaning gloves to keep Peter safe from the germs. They did laundry together. At this time, she asked a lot of questions. Country's public school system, and her mother told her monthly pay is normal. He explained that his older sister and their mother also has some discomfort. However, endometriosis is much more severe. They spent the next hour going over exactly what they know about this disease and what the surgery entails. He admitted Western medicine knew about this disease for more than a century, but it wasn't until 1980s that peer-reviewed scientific research journal articles really took off with new information about this condition. So at this time, she asked him how he knew that it's that time of the month for her. Again, he blushed. He admitted that he feels her energy is a little off. He felt the same thing from his two friends. She replied in Japanese, "Naruhodo." That makes sense. Since his father runs a satellite office in Tokyo, he knew exactly what she said in English, so he nodded. After her laundry was dried and folded, they parted ways. When she got back to her hotel room with her freshly cleaned out dried laundry, she had a tearful reunion with her parents. Because they all went through this whole horrible thing away from each other for the first time in their family life. So she updated her parents. The residence hall is too badly damaged to return. They had earmarked the building for destruction. They're currently talking about building additional residence halls to replace the one that's unstable, but it won't be ready until the following academic year at the earliest. They're also currently in the process of reimbursing students the meal plan and housing. And they're asking students to live elsewhere and apologizing for the inconvenience. Because what else can you do, right? Nature happened. So her parents are disappointed at this turn of events. What for? They sent their daughter all the way to San Francisco, only to see their daughter now, all of a sudden, like 2 months later, homeless. So her parents were disappointed, but they acquiesced because this is an act of nature. There wasn't anything anyone could have done to prevent it from happening. As they left the hotel, a member of the Murphy family waved to them, "Hey, over here." Kim's entire family, not just Kim, was invited to join the Murphy's family's Thanksgiving celebration. I know. Why would somebody think about celebrating when all this is going on? But anyway, and they weren't going to take no for an answer. So her parents thanked them, accepted the invite. At this time, they exchanged names, landline telephone numbers, and home addresses. So just RSVP, just in case something happens, plans change, so they have each other's info. Kim and her family spent the extended amount of time in Japantown talking about what Kim's going to do next. Obviously, she can't impose upon the Murphy family by freeloading at the hotel. Her father decided, okay, once you get the check from the university's on-campus housing office, pay for your stay, And if she needs more money, she could talk to her father. Much to her relief, she nodded. When they went grocery shopping, they were careful for the next few weeks to not buy any dairy or protein products, such as tofu, since there wasn't any electricity to keep the refrigerators. So obviously their entire inventory is spoiled and needs to be destroyed. Next, it was hot, So you got the heat, and you got no electricity, and all this food is spoiling. Next, where will she live next academic semester, since it will take several months before new residence halls are built? Not surprisingly, Eric was about to have another panic attack. After carefully thinking things through, she suggested, well, why not she return to her hometown, attend a local community college? So this was literally the straw that broke the camel's back. Everything about this university was disappointing. The entire semester, there was the constant threat of a union strike from either the professors or the graduate students, with no offer to extend the semester. If it happens, you've got the earthquake, 3 days, 2 nights, there's no classes, there's no talk about reimbursing the students or extending the semester. And she knew any agreements from the on-campus housing to the on-campus housing administration would result in Kim being given the runaround. So she's like, I'm not getting any support here. So then the following academic year, she can continue her university studies. Her parents did not like the answer. However, unless someone else came up with a better idea, she didn't have a choice. So they told her, start packing. She nodded. After lunch at the local Japanese restaurant, they went shopping in Japantown. At the hotel, they parted ways. The next morning, because obviously, they're going to need to talk separately with each other. What are we going to do? Is there another option? So anyway, the next morning, Kim went to the dining hall to make some breakfast. Peter was there. He offered to take her to the local Buddhist temple. So she completely, air quotes, forgot about Trey. She accepted Peter's invitation. After breakfast, he drove her in his rental car. Upon parking the car in the local parking garage. Yeah, in San Francisco, we have parking garages because there's no parking. No place for parking. They walked into the temple. It was a 2-story, reinforced concrete and glass building, just like everything else in San Francisco. The temple was built back in 1899 by the first-generation Japanese immigrants. Inside the temple, so they were celebrating their 90th anniversary at that time. Inside the temple looked remotely similar to the Catholic Church, that she went with Trey. There was a carpeted path leading to the Buddhist altar with rows of wooden pews on either side. At the front of the room was a golden statue of Buddha with a bouquet of flowers in an oversized vase. And there was a ceramic bowl full of incense with a bell and a bar on top of the bell on top of a cloth mat. So you got the cloth mat at the bottom, you got the bell in the middle, and you got the wooden bar at the top. At the front desk, Peter took out his credit card to pay for both of their membership fees. She was about to protest, but he stopped her with his open hand. She acquiesced. He also paid for a set of prayer beads and gave it to Kim. She thanked him. He nodded. When they walked in, they noticed a specific family that stood out. For some reason, several members of the congregation deliberately sat on the other side of the room and didn't even try to make eye contact with this family. So Kim and Peter sat next to them. They were a married couple with 3 children. The husband was a mixed-race man. His wife is an immigrant from Japan. Their children are mixed race. The son, Eugene, 24 years old, and elder daughter, Rayra, 21 years old, wore their jeans with the bottom part cuffed. Eugene sat next to his wife and their toddler son. Rayna sat next to them. The youngest daughter, Chiaki, last born, 18 years old, looked completely neither male nor female. However, all their children are well behaved, and they're behaved as though they're straight. After a brief set of instructions, they sat down. Soon after, services began. When services ended, they were the first to leave. They introduced themselves as the Smith family. Mr. Smith's indigenous ancestors used to live in the land that they're currently standing on. After Spain took over, they lost the land. They lost everything. When Mexico gained their independence from Spain, they got some of their freedom and their land back from the Spaniards. However, after Mexico lost the Mexican-American War, they lost everything all over again. The same government took the land from Japanese Americans in the aftermath of the attack on Pearl Harbor decades later. And the local government in San Francisco is doing the same thing with African Americans via gentrification. Kim and Peter were disappointed but not surprised. Kim carefully apologized for her ignorance. However, she asked why some members of the congregation choose to sit away from them. The youngest child, who was the same age as Kim, introduced herself as Chiaki. Chiaki is trans, and both their elder siblings are bi. Peter replied, "Now hold on, I see." Although Japanese Americans have non-xenophobic ethnic identity after World War II, they have maintained the homophobia and transphobia their ancestors brought with them from Japan. So at this time, another family walked toward them. They introduced themselves as the Hashimoto's. They're originally from Hawaii. Similar to the Smith family, they also have 3 kids, 4 in their teens, 2 older daughters, 1 younger son. When Kim looked at their son Mikey, Kim saw that he too was wearing cuff jeans. Chiaki discreetly poked Kim. Kim backed off. After brief interruptions, the Hashimoto's left. Chiaki discreetly said that his parents are also, homophobic and transphobic, and their son's queer. So Kim asked the Smith family to try to intervene. It was painfully obvious that Mikey would need their help navigating this country as a queer person with homophobic parents. Much to Kim's relief, they nodded. Yeah, we'll take care of it. Peter carefully asked Chiaki whether or not they consider surgery. Chiaki says she will consider it after she completes culinary school training. Peter carefully asked her to consider holding off. He feels that she has endometriosis as well. Although Chiaki was confused, Kim knew that Peter's intuition is correct. Kim saw Chiaki wincing throughout the services. If she has this condition, she could get that squared away before starting top surgery. After some small talk, Kim noticed that Chiaki couldn't stop looking at her socks. Kim apologized, said that they were the Kmart Blue Light Special socks. Chiaki shook her head. Her older sister, Reba, said, "Oh my gosh, I haven't worn 2 socks in years." Chiaki laughed so hard that she snorted. Kim blushed. Peter offered to help her get her socks that are more modern, more in fashion. Mrs. Smith immediately apologized for both of her daughters' behavior and shocked them to look. Chiaki and Reba immediately apologized, and the matter was dropped. At this time, Kim realized that queer people are very sensitive to how people look, how they dress. So to help change the subject, Peter and the Smith family exchanged names, landline telephone numbers. It was obvious to Peter that the Smith family also needs help rebuilding after the earthquake. Kim also gave him the phone number of the hotel where she's temporarily staying. She also carefully informed them that both of her parents are Japanese immigrants, hint, hint. So her younger sister is the same way. She believes everything their parents believe. So for reasons Kim doesn't understand, Kim is completely different from her parents and her younger sister. So much to her relief, Mrs. Smith, Mrs. Tamiko, Tamiko means great beauty, Aoki, Green Tree Smith said that she too, she's an immigrant from Japan, so she knows them. Perks in the family is the same way. So Kim breathed a sigh of relief. So okay, yeah, we're on the same page. Since the Smith family wanted to get to know Peter and Kim better, they invited them to lunch. Although Kim already had lunch at a Japanese restaurant with the parents and younger sister the day before, she let them choose the place. So they chose a British pub, obviously, because he's half British. They used this time to get to know each other better, figure out logistics of how Chiaki would get surgery, to find out whether or not she really does have this condition. At this time, Chiaki said that she's planning on becoming a sushi chef. However, since Japan's traditional, she needs to find somewhere else to get that training. Chiaki's father is part British. He did find a culinary school in Paris that can help her. And Peter, also same thing. He offered to help. His grandfather's business partner has satellite offices throughout Europe, including France. He can help them out as well. Kim surmised that's also part of the reason why Chiaki wants that surgery. So they will present as male, and there won't be any questions about whether or not they're qualified to be a sushi chef. And Chiaki nodded. It's like, yeah. So after they engaged in some more small talk, they exchanged landline telephone numbers and addresses. Then they went their separate ways. On Peter and Kim's way back to the hotel, Peter took her to the Murphy department store. Their socks were significantly way more expensive than Kmart Blue Light Specials. Each pair was handmade with love by the daughters and the matriarch of the Murphy family. And that was something that you cannot, factory-made socks cannot replicate. So fortunately, they found some toe socks that Kim thought were, air quotes, cute. After she paid for them, they returned to the hotel. Also, that department store had an underwear section next to the front door. When she saw some washable cloth sanitary napkins in a cloth bag, she also bought them as well. She did this because she was already down to her last few napkins, and she wasn't certain when she'll have the next opportunity to go to the local grocery store. At the cashier counter, the sign says that she'll get 10% off her purchase if she uses a reusable cloth bag with a department store logo on it. So she bought a bag on top of the underwear, got the discount, used the coupon that was in the hotel's welcome box in her room. When she went to her room, she put the receipt in the folder marked 1990 income tax, just in case she can use this expense as a federal income tax deduction. When they saw Trey Murphy, Kim basked and apologized. Oh my gosh, I forgot. Sorry. Yeah, she forgot to go to the Catholic Church with him. Peter also apologized. I'm sorry for taking her away from the Catholic Church. Trey waved his hand away. Like, no, it's okay. Instead, Trey asked her whether or not she wants to continue going to services. She nodded. He said that he'll make arrangements with the hotel to transport them to and from the church. San Francisco is a big city, and crime is still an issue. It would hurt Trey's heart if anything were to happen to her. So much to his relief, she nodded. After Peter returned her to her hotel room, Peter told her he'll return for the Murphy Thanksgiving gathering. Kim discreetly asked Peter for advice because she could see, he has the key. There's something about him. At this time, Trey excused himself at the hotel's conference room. She told him all about her family situation. She could tell that he was taking her concerns to heart. After she finished, he said that he'll talk with his father, because his father has more life experience. Plus, his father has a satellite office in Tokyo. Maybe he might have some more insight, a better solution. So after she finished, he talked to his father. After Thanksgiving gathering, Peter will have his father talk with her. When she nodded, because they need time to, because a lot of stuff happened all at once, so they need time to unpack and try to come up with a solution that will be a compromise for everybody. So when she nodded, he excused himself. She went to the front entrance of the hotel to see him drive back to San Francisco International Airport to fly back to Los Angeles. Her mind was still spinning from the earthquake and the hundreds of aftershocks. That night, she used the prayer beads that Peter gave her and prayed for a better future for her and her family. So you can see she's switching now. Before it was all me. I'm right, my parents are wrong, I'm right, my younger sister is wrong. Now she's like, no, maybe there's a better way to fix this, or at least compromise. There was one more thing that Kim did that month. She got her first flu shot. Every year, she got really sick during the winter months, and she really needs to make certain she doesn't make anybody else sick. At this time, Kim wished all public schools offered free flu shots. It would have kept her healthy, or at least, less sick at the height of every flu season. Finally, local residents in San Francisco agreed to raise their sales tax to partially cover the cost of rebuilding structures and highways. So now we're looking at the global picture, not just little Kim and being homeless, trying to figure out what she's gonna do next. So while all this is going on, local residents in San Francisco agreed to raise their sales tax to partially cover the cost of rebuilding structures and highways. That way, they won't be completely dependent on the federal government to bail them out, which is different, a couple of years ago. Los Angeles had the wildfires, and they expected the federal government to bail them out, and the federal government said no. So you can see this is different. 1989, San Francisco, they're like, no, we shouldn't, inconvenience the federal government. We this is our problem. We should use our own money to fix it. So that way they won't be completely dependent on the federal government to bail them out. The American Red Cross also donated $52.2 million out of their $74 to $78 million budget that were donated toward the earthquake relief effort. So you can see Red Cross, they did not donate all the money to the victims. They keep some of it. So you can see they're also completely transparent about this is the amount of money that came in because people were donating for the earthquake relief effort. That from that, this portion, the American Red Cross will give it to the victims. So now at this time, the federal government also added $1.1 billion in the relief package. The state allocation of FEMA, Federal Emergency something, so Federal Emergency Association together provided hundreds of millions of dollars for public infrastructure and housing assistance as well. Now bear in mind, this is a lot of people assuming or misinformation, but FEMA is not free money. It's not like the American Red Cross donating $52.2 million. You don't have to pay it back to them. With FEMA, it is a loan. So you have to pay them back plus huge interest. So keep that in mind. So state allocation and FEMA together provided hundreds of millions of dollars for public infrastructure and housing assistance. For Kim, it was heartwarming to see the entire nation unite to help Californians rebuild. It was times like this when Kim felt her parents might have picked the right country to move to and raise their family in. So again, you can see Kim is starting to soften. And Kim hoped that Japan will follow suit because this is perfect. There's an earthquake. This is how the United States got together to help each other. And now Kim hopes that Japan sees this. And, when Japan has the earthquake, they will learn from the lessons here. So, questions, comments, constructive criticisms, ask for clarification, let me know. And we shall see next chapter what happens next. Take care.